And welcome to Season 4, Episode 9 of the Dolphin Pod, the official CSI Athletics podcast. And on today's show, my guest is one that we've been waiting to have on the show for quite some time. It's hard to believe he's been here now for 2 seasons and has yet to join the show. But my guest today is women's soccer head coach Alex Mendolia. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe. I'm excited to be here and talk about my journey.
For many head coaches, their journey begins as a student athlete. Yours began at Farmingdale State, both as a player and as an assistant coach. Talk a bit about that, and at what point did you know you wanted to get into coaching?
That's an interesting start. I was really excited and grateful to play 4 years at Farmingdale State College. Was a captain in my last 2 seasons there as a student athlete. Had a great experience. I wouldn't change it for anything else. And during that time, I was fortunate to get into coaching at youth soccer camps as well as my former club where I played and grew up, Stony Brook Soccer Club, and that's where I started to enjoy, working with young athletes and teach the game. And after graduating 4 years, I was offered a position as an assistant coach, and I figured I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do post-graduation, and from there, I started to really love working at that level. And from there, I was looking at postgraduate degrees. I was looking at coaching education as a possibility, and that's kind of where it took off, which really ignited my passion for the game and teaching further.
So it sounds like you were a pretty good student as well. Your program, one that typically excels in the classroom. How were you as a student?
I would like to say I was a good student.
So would I.
I think it was, I was someone that did balance academics well. I was someone that really focused on my studies and taking resources to be better in the classroom. I think naturally with a sport, there were other things that, of course, take away from that aspect, from the competitive edge as a student athlete. But I think I was happy upon graduating with my, at least my bachelor's with a good GPA, as well as my master's with high standing.
My struggle was always attendance. And your student athletes, of course, have no problem with that. But moving on past your time at Farmingdale State, LIU Post, assistant coach for men's and women's soccer. That was an immensely successful time that you spent at LIU Post. How did you look to contribute to that success the program's had?
After Farmingdale, I was looking at studying at LIU Post, and the head coach at the time, Andreas Lindberg, a really good friend of mine, and he offered me the opportunity at a position that opened up after an assistant coach left, and as well as the women's program. It was kind of the main role was with the men, and then after my first season, I was helping out with the women, specifically with goalkeeping and some other things as well. And, for us as a staff, what I really enjoyed was that each assistant coach had a specific role in managing the players, and we did have a lot of really great talent, which helped with the success as well. And it was, things that I always think back of as those moments of success, they're always there, and it helped me use those type of methods and strategies to get the best out of the student athletes for my programs since then.
And how many coaches does it take on a staff to dedicate each one of them to a specific area like that and to really focus in on one aspect of the game? How many personnel members do you think that takes?
In an ideal world, I would say probably, 4 would be great. I think every program, based on resources and, different things, sometimes it's hard to have that, even a third member of the staff, but I think having at least 4 allows the head coach to focus more on the player management side, which is a big thing, especially dealing with a larger roster. And then you can kind of say, for better lack of words, divvy up the tasks, from session development or recruiting, goalkeeping specific, even the administrative tasks that kind of are the big chunk of the job, I would say.
So beyond LIU Post, first head coaching job at St. Joseph's, Long Island. put together the best season in conference in 5 years, appeared in the conference championship. Were there any unexpected challenges during your first experience as a head coach, and what are some of the highlights of your time in Long Island?
For us, going in, it was, I would say, somewhat more on a lower resource program. And based on my experiences, for me, was to maximize the experience of the student athlete. That was my goal. I had a great experience as a student athlete, and then going into LIU Post and a short stint at Stony Brook before St. Joseph's, I took those ideas and really wanted to give the student athletes more, and that was my goal. And it starts with just professionalism, being organized, and showing the players that we care, and that was a big thing. In addition to of course talent and being able to compete from that perspective, but for being a low resource school, we were able to navigate around doing things at the same standard that I wanted to bring, but without expending large sums of money to do it. And, I had to be innovative with that and creative and speak with mentors about how to maximize what I wanted to achieve.
And being around coaches over the years in athletic communications, I can tell when a coach really cares and is looking to enhance the student-athlete experience by their asks, and I know you're certainly one of those coaches, Alex, and I appreciate that as well. I'm sure the student-athletes do. You also have worked internationally. Your next stop in Spain. Was coaching internationally a goal of yours? And talk about what you did over there.
It was always a big goal of mine to work abroad, and it was always I would say, a dream to go there and immerse myself in the game and study there. And for myself, going over there was, of course, a big sacrifice. Leaving a head coaching position to do so. But I made sure that everything kind of aligned with what I wanted to get out of that experience. So going over there, I was able to work at the academy level with teams within the La Liga academy system, as well as on the men's professional side in the third division, and I was an assistant coach there. While my time in Spain, I was also studying the coaching degree. So I did level 1 and 2, which is the UEFA B and A courses. So I was able to get that hands-on experience, and I'm grateful for that. And everyone there kind of accepted me, as if I lived there my entire life, and I really loved that. And for myself, different from the coaching education aspect, because how they do things in Spain is somewhat different in many ways than what they do here. So I would kind of open up my eyes to the side of youth development, management, the professional side. And I think where that started was when I was a young coach, probably around, it's well over 15 years ago now.
Don't age yourself now.
No, I'm trying not to. That's where I started going over. I brought teams over to play in tournaments and build contacts through clubs. So I was going back and forth to Spain probably 2 times a year, 3 times a year for meeting with colleagues and contacts, doing observation, and that's where it kind of really started my say, hey, that's my goal. I'm going to get there one day.
Well, it wouldn't be your last time coaching in Europe. We'll talk a bit more about that later in the show. But you've also coached in the NWSL with Sky Blue FC, now Gotham FC. Talk about your time coaching in the NWSL.
I came back from Spain specifically to work with Sky Blue, and we worked with some very high-profile players, Carly Lloyd being one of them, and Kylene Sheridan as well from Canada, and many others that I'm missing. But it was a great experience. It was, with the travel and different aspects of working with professional athletes. Of course, there's always challenges and things that, come about. But, for me, it made me a better coach. It helped me raise what I want to do as a coach to a higher standard. And, I always think back to those times and how much I grew in that time I was with Sky Blue.
Well, after Sky Blue, Division I, Seton Hall, as an assistant, how did the Division I level compare to the Division II and Division III levels, and what are some standout moments from your time with the Pirates?
Some of the standouts, it was an interesting time. When I got hired there, I was right pretty much at the start of when COVID happened, and it was Seton Hall is a Big East program, so we had a lot of the great resources that we can somewhat that you can compare to at the pro level. So for comparing, there wasn't, I would say, from like the travel aspect, the competition level, those were elements that were much higher, but it's not much different from, say, the student athlete experience that I try to replicate here. So my time there, I really enjoyed it, and again, I kind of grew a lot there from learning different aspects of the game, even from just managing the academic side with the student athletes, or from the recruiting connections and how that grows from recruiting cross country or internationally. I think that helped me build that side of my profile as a coach.
Let's talk a bit about CSI. How did this position as head coach of the Dolphins get on your radar? Obviously, you took over a rebuilding program. What's your assessment right now of where that process is at as well?
For me, I was really, really interested in becoming a head coach again. It was something that I was dying to do, and I always saw CSI after the transition from Division III to Division II. I saw the potential that CSI has, and from the academic side, but of course the athletic side. Knowing the ECC well, obviously looking at the competition, how that has changed over the years too. So I really loved to embrace that type of challenge. So, it was a program, of course, transitioning from Division III to Division II, there's always processes that have to take place. One, my priority was to come in and enhance the academic standing of the program, the competitive edge of the program, bring in players that fit the style, the game model that I want to employ, and build the brand within the community. And for me, that was huge. So when I first got hired here, I had my vision and what that looked like over 3 to 5 years, and the starting points of what I wanted to tackle first. And taking over, a collegiate program is never easy. It takes time to do. I think overall, I'm happy where that's trending from, community engagement, academics, the life skills that the student athletes need, and we are becoming more competitive. I think that's going to take time as well, and I'm, already excited for the fall to see those type of players come in and contribute in the way that I envision, and it's just a path that we have to just keep putting our heads down, work hard, know our resources, and how we can maximize that to the best of our ability.
And you talked about building a brand in the community. I know you have an event coming up. Talk about some of those community initiatives that the program has been a part of. We
do quite a few community service events in different manners. I think the big piece of feedback and just to start with this, was to get our brand out to the community from a women's soccer perspective. And it was very, I think if everyone knows of CSI on Staten Island, but the involvement, the engagement of what the student athletes can bring was something that I wanted to tap into. So we started to do different events. My first year here, we did a readathon at a local, school for children between, I think it was 8 and 15 years old, and to kind of give back about making those type of connections. And we've done everything from towel drives to working with animal care centers of New York, but that's an ongoing process. And for me, it's just to help the student athletes understand the importance of community service and how they can give and how that feels, and also too for us to know that we're there to support the community. And a lot of the organizations or companies that we've worked with are really grateful for what we can, and those are the ones that come to our games or stay in contact continually.
Now, I mentioned before that your time in Spain would not be the last time you would travel to Europe, and this, of course, is the reason we brought you on the podcast to talk about your time with the U.S. women's national team at this past year's Paris Olympics. How did that opportunity present itself, and what was your role?
It was an incredible experience. I was brought in through mentors of mine and colleagues that I know from the professional game to assist the team, specific in scouting opponents and analyzation and breaking that kind of down to a way that it could be presented to the staff and later on to the players. And it was something that I always think back that there's so much detail that goes into prepping for games, and the methods behind that are so valuable for performance, and that was one of the roles that I had when I was with the team.
So leading up to Paris last year, inaugural Gold Cup, the team defeats Brazil, the She Believes Cup, some international friendlies. At what point during all of that does the work begin preparing for Paris?
Prior to Paris, the team goes into what we call as camp, national camp, and the team got together prior, to prepare through friendlies leading up to Paris. And that time it's more of, since it's a fairly new staff, is to implement, the principles that are needed to compete. And that was the big focus going into Paris, is to try to get the players quickly on the same page and then go from there. So it was essentially the first set of games under the new coaching staff from that aspect.
So building off of that, what were the expectations following that first set of games? Is it a gold medal or bust mentality? Were the expectations a bit more tempered than that? What was the thought process among the staff and the players?
Looking at the U.S. women's national team, there's always that historical outlook on the team, right, between World Cups and previous gold medals. So I think from a fan perspective or as a country, it's always, somewhat of, hey,
well, I can tell you the spectators at home are probably thinking gold medal or bust. Yeah,
exactly.
Of course.
And I think that's something that, we always hope for. But I think the idea was to go in and now see how far we can go under, a new staff. And I think the expectation is, of course, always there, but it's more so performance and competing the best that, the team can do on a daily.
First game in Paris, the team goes up early, and then Mallory Swanson scores twice in 70 seconds. Obviously, that's your first Olympic game. How tough is it not to get caught up in a moment like that?
Yeah, so it's interesting because competing in or training in such a short amount of time, going up against some very good, teams, some opponents as well, it's a surreal feeling, and it's always important to kind of look at the group stages first and say, well, you have to take care of business in a group stage in order to get even a chance at a medal, right? So I think that feeling, anytime the team scored a goal or competed in a way that we can, take the game, to us per se, is something that is just like, yeah, let's go, then that feeling is something that, I always think of.
So 3 days later against Germany, the team's going to have the opportunity to advance in the group stage. But you have those 3 days between games. What typically goes on during that 3-day window between opponents?
Yeah, there's between recovery and training, there's always preparation. There's ways to analyze the game from the analytical department that, looks at the opponent of the game that was just played, but also looking ahead and how we can best prepare for that. So, as much as the players might have somewhat of a lesser schedule per se, behind the scenes there's a lot going on in order to prepare for the next step and, how we can always, or the team could always grow from that aspect.
So the game against Germany, early lead, score is tied, but then the team once again runs away with it 4-1. 2 decisive wins now in 2 games. How is the staff feeling at that point?
It's definitely, the feelings are high, right? The vibes are there. Everyone's super excited. But what I love about working with that staff is the growth mindset aspect behind it. And as much as it's a great win, there's always areas like, hey, how can we grow? And,
always room for improvement.
Right. So, that's something that it's, hey, stay focused, right? Still work, push yourselves, and that's something that's just so enjoyable to be around.
And that's something I hear from coaches all the time. There's always room for improvement. But
right.
3 days again before a game against Australia, chance to claim the top spot in Group B now. Game comes along, the team gets ahead early, has the chance to play from ahead again for the entire game, or most of the game anyway. How much of a benefit was it that the team was able to never play from behind during the entire run?
I think that is just in general in sports, looking at that from the outside view, it always puts that team with somewhat of like a bullseye on you, and I think that teams prepare against that, and it makes the game a little bit more challenging. But I would say is going up early in a game or leading in a game has so many more benefits to it, right? And I think that builds player confidence, and also too it builds momentum within the game. And I think those matches in general help lead to that confidence building for the group itself going into knockout.
Extra time against Japan in the quarterfinal, no score. Overtime against Germany in the semifinal, no score. Are there words to describe how tense those moments were? And have you ever experienced anything like that as a coach?
No, I haven't.
I had a feeling that would be the answer.
Yeah, I think it's when you're in a knockout stage type tournament, right, or a knockout round, it's always like, well, you can always be the better team but never come out with the result that you want, and I think there's always angst to that. And both opponents were great opponents, and looking at Germany per se is playing them a second time in a tournament like that is never easy. I think as the time boils down and you get closer to the 90-minute mark, you're like, okay, what's going to happen? And, we were very fortunate to, for players to come into those positions and find a way to score and end the game that way. So I think that sometimes as a spectator per se, right, taking a look back for myself, it's a moment that you're holding your breath and you're like, because, there's a lot of anticipation and excitement, of course, that goes with it.
Obviously, there's no experience like being a part of a team that wins a gold medal. In the final 57th minute, Mallory Swanson scores. The team takes the lead. They go on to win the gold medal. What are your fondest memories of that gold medal victory?
I mean, there's just so many. To be honest, I think from there, one, playing against Brazil, who's a fantastic team, and I think they have a lot of potential, leading towards the World Cup in 27. I think that makes things that much more sweeter to say is, a team that, took us a bit to kind of get into, and we were able to get the result, and just having that win after 90 minutes is, it's hard to describe the feeling besides excitement and enjoyment and being around people that share the same thing is, it's hard to describe, to be honest.
Now, come World Cup 27, where can we expect to find you? I might be in the stands, but I don't think I'll be as close as you are.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we're not too sure yet. I think there's a lot with that process, but it'll be a great opportunity, of course, if invited back.
And during a run like the one the team had in Paris on their way to a gold medal, inevitably you're going to grow much closer with the members of that team, members of the staff. Is there anyone in particular that now you would consider a friend for life?
Yeah, I think as a staff, what I really loved about the environment is, coming into it, feeling welcomed, feeling valued, and building relationships. And I think that's a big piece. I would say everyone that I've worked with, even with the national camp that I was just in January, is just, building those relationships. And I would say everyone, that I was there with, we kind of share the same thing, and it's a very cohesive environment. And so I would say everyone is, in that way and very professional about it, of course, as well.
And you touched on it before when you spoke about your time in Spain, but easy to lose in all of this is that you spent all of this time away from home, away from your family. Did coming back as part of a gold medal winning team soften the blow at all?
In some ways it does, yeah. I think that's something
I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's hard, and being away, and it's never easy, even especially with a young one at home. And but, my family is very supportive of me, and the biggest thing is being away is being greeted at the airport and getting to see them. And I think there's ways. It's never easy being away because you're not physically with someone, right, or family. But between technology these days with FaceTime or whatever else, it kind of makes things slightly easier because you get to see them and hear them all the time, though it's not the physical side of it. Yep. But I think after that final game, getting home and to kind of share that experience with everyone was something that I was looking forward to. I couldn't wait to get back and share that and see everyone and celebrate, here in home soil.
And when you came back, you don't just get to say now that you contributed to the success of a team that won a gold medal. You also got a really cool gift from the team. Tell our audience about that.
One of my favorite things, that I love that we were gifted was a signed jersey, the home kit, the white uniform worn, during the Olympics, and it was signed by all the players. And that's something that's really special to me that I look at, all the time. It's hanging in my home, and I have some photos with it as well that are part of the experience, but also to the memory process. And when I walk by it, I always think about, wow, that was great. So it's something that's very special to me.
And now that you've been a part of such a big accomplishment, what's next for you? It's tough to go up from here, admittedly.
For me, I kind of look at it. What more could I do to grow? I'm a very growth mindset oriented person, and I always look where I can help and contribute in different manners. If it is with the national team, right, in some capacity, but it's how I can grow and keep learning as a coach. I think that's my biggest aspirations is through education or mentorship in some capacity. That's where I'd like to go next, is to keep growing in the game.
And we always give our guests a final opportunity to look right into the camera and address our audience, whether you want to address potential student athletes, recruits, or our audience. Whatever you want to say, Alex, the floor is yours. The camera's right there.
Well, thank you. Really excited to be on the podcast today. I really enjoyed having a conversation. For myself, I'm not someone to really kind of go into detail, about my journey. So it's been a pleasure sharing that, with you, Joe, and of course everyone here at CSI. Really looking forward to the fall. I know the spring is about to kick off in about a week for women's soccer here, but hope to invite everyone out to the fall season. We got a large class coming in. Really excited about that and seeing where the program starts to trend.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for coming on once again. My guest today has been women's soccer head coach Alex Mendolia. My name is Joe Foreman, and this has been Season 4, Episode 9 of the Dolphin Pod. For more on Alex's journey, you can check out our feature over at csidolphins.com. That will, of course, include a link to today's podcast. You can get all of our new episodes of the Dolphin Pod on our CSI Sportsnet YouTube channel or at csidolphins.com/CSI Sportsnet. All episodes are available for MP3 downloads as well on all of our major podcasting hosting websites. Until next time, once again, this has been Joe Foreman. Thank you to my guest, Alex Mendolia, and thanks for watching this episode of the Dolphin Pod.